Imagine you're a Roman senator walking through the Subura, Rome's infamous pleasure district, when you notice a familiar figure servicing clients in a common brothel. Your blood runs cold as you recognize the delicate features beneath the cheap makeup. This isn't just any prostitute. This is Valeria Messalina, Empress of Rome, wife of Emperor Claudius, willingly degrading herself for the thrill of anonymous encounters with the city's lowest citizens. This wasn't some desperate woman forced into prostitution. This was the most powerful woman in the Roman Empire, sneaking out of the palace at night to compete with common prostitutes, determined to prove she could outlast any woman in sexual endurance. You think you know about Roman decadence? What you're about to discover about Messalina will make Caligula look like a choir boy. Because Rome's third empress didn't just abuse her power, she weaponized her sexuality in ways that would terrorize an empire and ultimately seal her own horrific fate. In 38 CE, Rome celebrated what looked like the perfect royal wedding. Messalina was only 15 years old when she married Emperor Claudius. She seemed perfect for the job, young, beautiful, and from a rich noble family. Claudius was 13 years older and had physical problems that made him walk funny and speak with difficulty, but he was happy to marry such a beautiful young woman. Everyone thought Messalina was exactly what an empress should be. She had golden hair, pale skin, and looked like the perfect Roman lady. She did everything right at first. She had 2 children with Claudius and appeared at important events looking proper and dignified. Roman society had very strict rules about how women should behave. Good wives and mothers were respected, while prostitutes were looked down upon. An empress was supposed to be the most virtuous woman in the empire. Even rumors about bad behavior could cause serious problems for the government. This made what Messalina did even more shocking and dangerous. But behind the beautiful palace walls, something dark was growing. The same woman who smiled at religious ceremonies and hosted fancy dinner parties was secretly planning nighttime adventures that would shock even the most wild Roman nobles who thought they had seen everything. The change started slowly during Messalina's first year as empress. Palace servants began noticing strange things about her behavior. She would send her guards away at odd times, saying she was tired. Then she would sneak out of her room wearing simple clothes that hid who she really was. At first, it seemed like innocent rebellion, just a young woman wanting some excitement outside the boring palace life. But Messalina's midnight trips quickly became something much more serious and disturbing. She started watching Rome's prostitutes carefully, learning how they worked, where they went, and who their customers were. This wasn't just casual watching. She was planning something with the careful attention of a military general preparing for war. The first big incident happened during the Saturnalia festival in 40 CE. This was a time when normal social rules were relaxed and people could act differently than usual. While Claudius was busy with religious ceremonies, Messalina disguised herself and went to the Subura district. What started as curiosity about how regular Romans lived became an obsession with proving she was better than professional entertainers in bed. The historian Tacitus wrote about whispered stories from palace workers who found out about Messalina's secret activities. She had approached a brothel owner, offering to work for one night without revealing who she was. The owner, not knowing she was the empress, agreed to let this aristocratic woman try it for excitement. But Messalina's performance that night was beyond anything the brothel had ever seen. She serviced more clients than their most experienced workers. She showed an appetite that shocked even professionals who were used to extreme demands. When dawn came and other prostitutes stopped working, Messalina refused to leave. She wanted more clients, more challenges, more chances to prove that an empress could do better than any common prostitute. The brothel owner finally had to force her to go home. But the damage was done. Messalina had found her true passion. Within months of her first brothel experience, Messalina had created a system for her nighttime activities that showed she was very smart about planning her madness. She got trusted servants to help smuggle her out of the palace. She arranged for disguises that completely changed how she looked. She created fake identities that let her move freely through Rome's underground sex world. But simple prostitution wasn't enough for Messalina's competitive nature. She began organizing contests between herself and Rome's most famous courtesans. She would bet huge amounts of money on her ability to service more clients in one night than any professional. These competitions weren't private. They attracted audiences of wealthy Romans who came to watch their empress humiliate herself for entertainment. The most famous of these contests happened in 41 CE when Messalina challenged Scylla, Rome's most celebrated prostitute, to an endurance competition. The rules were simple. Whoever could service the most clients between sunset and dawn would win a fortune in gold. Roman nobles packed the place, placing bets while watching their emperor's wife compete like a gladiator in an arena of flesh. Scylla, a professional with years of experience, paced herself carefully through the night. She had learned techniques for handling clients efficiently while saving her strength for the long competition. By dawn, she had serviced 25 clients and said she was exhausted but victorious. Messalina was just getting started. Even after Scylla gave up, the empress continued accepting new clients. She was driven by something that went far beyond just sexual desire. Historical accounts say she ultimately serviced over 30 men that night, stopping only when no more volunteers could be found. Her victory wasn't celebrated. It was watched in horrified silence by Romans who realized they were seeing something unprecedented and deeply disturbing. The psychological meaning was staggering. This wasn't a desperate woman forced into degrading situations. This was the most powerful woman in the world choosing humiliation as entertainment. Messalina had discovered that her imperial status made being degraded more thrilling, not less. The bigger the difference between her public dignity and private degradation, the more intense her satisfaction became. But these public competitions were just the beginning of Messalina's descent into systematic perversion that would eventually threaten the stability of the entire Roman government. In 42 CE, Messalina crossed a line that transformed her from scandalous empress into a real threat to imperial security. She established what historians would later call the most audacious criminal enterprise in Roman history, a high-end brothel operating under imperial protection, staffed by aristocratic women and serving the city's most powerful men. The operation was hidden in a luxurious villa near the campus marshes, disguised as a private club for elite social gatherings. Messalina used her imperial authority to recruit participants, basically blackmailing noble women into joining her establishment. She threatened political or financial ruin for their families if they refused. Messalina's criminal genius was in her client selection. Instead of serving random customers like common prostitutes, she deliberately targeted senators, military commanders, and wealthy merchants who had information valuable to imperial interests. Every encounter was documented by hidden servants who recorded conversations, identified weaknesses, and gathered intelligence that Messalina could later use for political manipulation. The empress had essentially created a spy operation that made her one of the most informed people in the Roman Empire. She knew which senators were planning to oppose imperial policies, which military commanders had treasonous thoughts, and which merchants were avoiding taxes. This information network gave Messalina unprecedented power over the very men who should have been governing the empire alongside her husband. By 44 CE, Messalina's appetite for power and perversion had grown beyond anything that could be satisfied through secret operations. She began organizing elaborate public orgies that served as both entertainment and political theater, forcing Rome's elite to participate in degrading spectacles that cemented her control over the empire's leadership. These events weren't spontaneous parties, but carefully planned displays of imperial power disguised as religious festivals. Messalina would claim to be honoring various gods, requiring attendance from senators, their wives, and other high-ranking officials. What began as formal religious observances would gradually transform into scenes of systematic sexual humiliation. The most horrifying accounts describe Messalina forcing political rivals to perform with each other while she watched. Senators who had opposed imperial policies found themselves naked and degraded before their colleagues, their dignity destroyed, and their authority permanently damaged. She had discovered that sexual humiliation was more effective than execution for neutralizing political opposition. In 48 CE, Messalina's obsession with power and scandal reached its peak when she committed an act so unprecedented that it shocked even Romans used to imperial excess. While Emperor Claudius was away overseeing grain shipments, Messalina held a full wedding ceremony with Silius, a handsome young senator. This wasn't a secret affair. It was a legal Roman marriage complete with religious ceremonies, official witnesses, and formal contracts. The legal implications were staggering. Roman law recognized her new marriage as legitimate, while she simultaneously remained Claudius's wife. She had essentially declared herself divorced from the emperor and remarried while still holding the title of empress. The confrontation came swiftly and brutally. Claudius returned to Rome with loyal troops and confronted Messalina. Contemporary accounts describe her final moments as a mixture of defiance and terror as she realized her web of blackmail and sexual control had finally encountered a force stronger than shame, imperial survival instinct. Messalina's execution was swift, but her erasure was systematic. Claudius ordered her name removed from all public monuments, her images destroyed, and her memory condemned. The empress who had used sexual power to control an empire was herself controlled through the ultimate expression of state power.